All right, you guys, welcome back to another edition of Seahawks Forever, powered by BetUS. And today what I'm going to do is react live to the John Schneider Show, the premiere for this offseason of the John Schneider Show, which he will do weekly throughout, I think through the draft. He does this on Seattle Sports 710. Started doing this a couple of years ago. And while he's not going to spill all of the tea, right? He does give some really cool insights. And what I've done, since I wasn't able to react to it initially yesterday, is I have avoided all commentary about anything he said. I avoided clips of the show and social media since I got home last night. And I will be playing this live and reacting to it next on Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
Well, you can still sign up for a new account on BetUS and bet and take advantage of all their live betting on all the major sports. If you're into casino games, that's new. And if you sign up for a new account today, they'll give you a 200% sign-up bonus up to $5,000 at betus.com/casino. Check it out. All right. So, in what will be the last show that I record from this studio, which is why it probably sounds, at least it does in my ear, a little more echoey than normal because the room is empty except for this. I don't know if you saw the picture that I posted on Twitter at Seahawks Forever, in case you don't follow me already. But this is the last thing. Well, it's not the last thing. There's some other stuff to be packed, but my goodness, been burning the candle at both ends this week. Working, doing this, arranging people to come buy furniture and pick things up and take things to the dump and packing and getting ready to move. So unless there's big breaking news, unless John Schneider makes a big move over the next couple days, I can react to that on my phone or low tech on laptop. All this stuff gets packed up as soon as I'm done here today. And then be with you again by Wednesday, I would say, from a much, much warmer locale. Hit that like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Hit that bell for notification of future episodes. All the other ways you can support the show are down below. And in case you haven't heard or haven't watched any of my recent shows, this move is permanently temporarily permanent. For now, the plan is going to spend at least the next 3 months down in Arizona with my lady and taking a break for my career, one that could last 3 months, 6 months, a year, longer. Just going to focus on the show through the draft. So stay tuned for some announcements about how that will change in as far as what you see on the channel and what some of the programming ideas are. We'll tie all that up and announce all that on Wednesday, I guess, my first show from down there. All right, so let's do this. Let me get this all set here. So I've queued this up, and like I said, I'm just going to play this live. And I've been avoiding, I've had people texting me, what'd you think? What'd you think of the John Schneider Show? And I know the biggest thing on everyone's mind, of course, they're going to ask about the quarterback. They always will. But it's the offensive line stuff, right? So we'll dig into that. I'll probably pause it a couple times and react to things he's saying in the moment, and then wrap it up and give you my thoughts at the end. So let's do this. So this is Dan from the future, because as I was editing this show and getting it ready to send out to you, I realized that there was an issue on the technical side of things in the audio processing. And so you're going to hear an echo from the show, the John Schneider Show. It's a simple setting that I had incorrect. There's no way I can go back and correct it because of how many times I pause during. And rather than just scrap the whole show altogether, I decided I'm going to put this out there anyway. So just want to let you know, I apologize. It's something that now I plan to react in this manner to his radio shows. And since I'll be doing this full time, I'll be able to react to it live, actually, as it's happening, as they broadcast it out, or at least if it takes a minute to post, at least right after. But it's a teachable moment for me, as John Schneider would say. So my apologies, but bear with it. You can still hear what they're saying. It just sounds like they're in a very echoey room. I'll fix it next time. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming.
offensive lineman and develop offensive lineman. And I mean, you brought up the Super Bowl. We just saw what happened in the Super Bowl, for crying out loud.
Yeah, we did.
Back for a third season. We've been picked up for another season. The John Schneider Show.
Just like yesterday.
How about it?
How you guys doing?
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too.
Third year?
Third year. I can't believe we're doing this
show.
Yeah, let's do it.
Fantastic. You still look great.
I don't think we finalized the contract, though, have we? That one didn't come across my desk.
We're still working on terms.
You're playing for free right now.
Okay. All right.
He's ironing out his demands. But
yeah, good to see you guys.
Hey, how much do you take any time? What do you get as far as just away from football? Season ends.
Yeah, I've been on vacation since the season ended. Just taking time. Yeah, just trying to.
We know that.
Find myself. Yeah, just trying to find myself. So we took a couple days. Trace and I took a couple days right after that first week, and then then we just got right back after it. All the stuff with the offensive coordinators hire with Clint and everything was awesome, and then free agency meetings and yeah. We just go, we just keep going. It's not, like half of June, like I say, half of June, first 2 weeks in July is like, okay, let's try to go see family, go see, do the vacation stuff,
Yeah.
So my niece is getting married in Italy this summer. So,
So you're going?
Yeah, we're going to go over there, and I think it's July 10th or something like that. So
Cool.
Yeah. Looking forward to that, but yeah, it doesn't stop. We got the guys in here now. We started draft meetings this week. So, it's awesome.
Yeah. Tell us about the new coach.
Remember, that's key. That last year the coaches weren't involved in those draft meetings because Mike Macdonald had just been hired, and it was right before the combine. And John and the scouting staff and the front office staff, everybody went to Indianapolis, left the coaches behind so they can install their offseason plan and OTAs and their playbook. So already ahead of the game. Coaching staff in place before the draft prep starts.
As far as how the interviews went, and you and Mike obviously in on that,
Yeah.
but just in are you
really.
having
So
them one-on-one? Or?
Yeah, so really impressed with Mike's interview process. Leslie was really involved as well. All the coordinators, AD and Jay. But kind of similar to the head coaching thing, some Zooms, and then which are always kind of awkward, but it's like a nice initial, get to know you a little bit, and then flying the guys in and spending time with them and figuring out, who they are. But just really, really impressed with Mike's the brain still, like everything I told you guys last year. Like, wow, the brain's really cool, like really clear, really intelligent, and knows exactly what he wants. So the questions are right to the point, and yeah, real direct. So it was really cool. You always learn a lot, when you're interviewing these people.
We're seeing an evolution of this relationship between Mike Macdonald and John Schneider, and John Schneider in his role, and how it's different now compared to what it was like with Pete Carroll, because we all know that Pete Carroll had the VP, President of Operations title, and could veto any decision and had final say. And while those two maintained for the entire length of 14 years together that it was very collaborative, and that very rarely did Pete ever exercise that veto power. He had it, and so we were all looking to see if there was a different way that John was going to go about his business last offseason. What impresses me about his management style, and regardless of what you might think about him as a general manager because of his football decisions, and I know that that's a more polarizing topic than it was 5, 6, 7 years ago, that he is universally respected and liked around the league because of how he treats people. And I think we're seeing that now manifest itself in his management style. And I can speak to that just from the many interactions I've had with him. I've seen him interact with my coworkers and other guests and people he's with. He's just a genuine guy. And I think where that's coming across here, and the reason I wanted to pause it and say something, is Mike Macdonald had never been a head coach before in his life until last year. John Schneider made it a point at his very first press conference after Pete Carroll was relieved of his duties to say that I now have final say of the roster and player decisions and coaches and coaching staff and everything else. Some GMs would get off on showing that power. And he's not. Here he is telling you that he let Mike Macdonald lead this search for his coordinator, which is what Mike Macdonald said. And so I think, and then some of the things in that John Boyle piece the other day from the experience at the Senior Bowl, where Macdonald talked to all of the scouts and the front office people that were there before the first practice. And the way that Boyle described it was a very no-nonsense, no-holds-barred, transparent, honest assessment of the roster. Here's what we're here to accomplish. Here's what we need. Here's what we have to get done. John's letting him take that lead role, and I think that's really impressive just from a management standpoint.
You learn a lot about it's fun because there's a lot of respect for the Seahawks organization around the league, which is awesome because we have so many great people in this building. So to be able to not try to have some of the names get out there in the public and try to go through the process and like I said,
how many names have we not heard? I'd be interested to know. Did he reach out to Doug Peterson? Did they reach out to Frank Reich, right? Some of those guys that aren't under contract, and so nothing needs to be approved or no permission needs to be granted. We may never know, but I wonder.
Well, being able to talk to these guys and learn about like what their vision is for their system, and with Clint, it was just really it was really clear what his system was.
Was it pretty clear right away he was the guy? Because we're on the outside, we're looking at it, and at least publicly, we knew you'd spoken with him twice,
right?
You'd spoken with Udinsky twice and Fraley twice, and then there was just kind of a dead period where we didn't hear much.
Yeah,
and then Fraley goes back to Detroit, and I remember we're talking. I'm going, man, this seems really deliberate. I hope they don't lose their guy. And
it was deliberate. I mean, Mike did a great job of really thinking through his process. It's a very important hire. Last year Mike was the second to last hire. So, quite honestly, the pool's just different at that time, right? So you don't have the same, number of coaches that are available. And so to be able to, walk into this process at the time we did.
It'd be interesting to go back. I haven't done this yet, and I haven't seen that anyone else has done it. But go back and do a refresher on who else other than Grubb could have been available, right? And how that might have changed things. Jake Peets, for instance, who they brought on as pass game coordinator. What if they had just hired him as the offensive coordinator? We could be having a very different conversation here today, right?
At the end of the season and like knowing exactly what he was looking for, but then talking to the different people and trying to envision, what his work day is going to look like, what the philosophy is, and who they want to hire on their staff, all that kind of stuff. So it's a process, and I was just really impressed with his ability to like know exactly what he wanted.
Yeah. So how specific do these meetings get? I mean, you guys putting on film or, because it seems like this year it kind of brought to the forefront how important coaching is, that coaches are able to unlock certain players like Sam Darnold.
Sure.
Yeah. So how specific are you getting when you're talking to like an offensive coordinator?
Well, the parts that I'm involved with are pretty fun, right? Because so when the film comes on and they start talking situational football, I feel like they're, speaking French,
another language.
I'm kind of like, okay, this is the time where I exit stage left.
Okay.
There's all kinds. There's several different parts to it, but really,
isn't that interesting? And he's not alone. One might think he's a general manager of a football team. He's in charge of making decisions on who's on the roster and who's hired and who to draft, who to acquire, and he doesn't know X's and O's. He knows them, right? He played small college football and he grew up in the Green Bay Packers organization. It's just not at the level of expertise. I think what he's saying there is he's paying respect and homage to how smart those guys are, and that's a level where he's not going to add to the conversation by being in that room with them, and also he has other stuff to go work on while they're doing that, right? But it just goes to show. I mean, I've managed big successful businesses, and I didn't have to be an expert on every single thing that went on in the business, right? Restaurants, bars. I had working knowledge of every position. I could step in if needed and help out anywhere. But I put my best people, the smartest people, the experts in place and let them do their thing and what they're best at to succeed. General manager means general manager. You're managing your managers, you're managing your people, and letting them lean into their expertise.
Just watching. My role is just kind of like watching everybody interact and just seeing how things flow, and then just giving Mike those questions that everybody on our hiring group last year did with me through the process when we hired Mike. It's like, okay, well, we noticed this, we noticed that. How do you feel about this category, that category? Could you envision yourself working with us? All those questions you just kind of keep just there to bounce ideas off of and be as much of a support as possible.
Do you guys get into the details of individual players that may be becoming free agents? Like, hey, what do you think of this tight end? Could you work with? Does he fit with your system,
absolutely.
Or does this running back fit with what you want to do, or he doesn't fit?
Yeah, absolutely. They walk through everything. They're trying to, they want to be here. It's kind of cool, and the guys they have a vision for what they want. They lay it out for Mike. He bounces questions off of them. Leslie, Jay, AD, everybody's just kind of bouncing questions. I'll get the personnel questions a lot, right? Like, how long is this guy here? That sort of stuff. So,
just on another note, it kind of similar to my last one. It's just fascinating how sports is it's different than running a normal business. I'm thinking again to my 13-year career managing bars and restaurants. I didn't know how good the bartenders in that particular place were, or the servers, or the cooks. Like, I didn't know. And so when I'm going through an interview process, right, to be a general manager of a business, like, I'm talking about speculation. I'm talking about what I've done in the past and the type of workers that I like, and that there's no scouting film on that staff, right? It's a cool thing. It's a cool advantage that these guys have if they're prepared properly, and you go in to interview for a coordinator position or even a position coach position, and certainly head coach, where you come in prepared and you can say, I like this guy fits, this guy fits, this guy fits, that guy doesn't fit, this guy might fit, but in a different role. I need this is what you don't have that I need. It's different. It's cool. It would imagine if this was the way it was in every walk of life, and you could go in with that. If there was scouting tape, right? My goodness, all the people that went out to dinner last night on Valentine's Day could have maybe watched some of that scouting tape to make their choices a little bit better. Okay, no more tangents.
Leslie, Jay, AD, everybody's just kind of bouncing questions. I'll get the personnel questions a lot, right? Like, how long is this guy here? That sort of stuff. So. But it's fun. It's a really fun process. I mean, it really is. It really was. I mean, we loved Robert and all that. But
it's a fun process, but let's not have to go through it for a couple of years, right? That's what really key to this hire. And I think one of the reasons they were so deliberate about it is they need to make sure that they get not just a guy that they think is the right fit, but one that might be around a while. And sure, it's possible that Clint Kubiak this offense could explode this year, and that will garner him some head coaching interest. But I think we saw from his press conference the other day, not the most dynamic personality in the world, and that may give teams pause for a little bit. He may have to prove it for more than just one season. But it's the staff that they put together as well. And John Benton, right? And he brought Andrew Janoko with him, guys that he's worked with, that he doesn't have to get to know. Like this entire staff last year had to get to know each other before they could even hit the ground running. These guys know each other, how they work, the lingo, the terminology, just their coaching styles, and then the possibility of even bringing Rick Dennison, long-time NFL assistant. They've added a run game coordinator this week. This is about a lot more than just Clint Kubiak. But what he's saying here, it's fun. It's a cool process. I understand where he's coming from. But let's not have to go through this process again for a couple of years.
It was like this was a clear, okay, now we're going to make a shift. Here we go. And onward we move.
Yeah, it was pretty cool last year, really. I mean, I know it was a tough stretch there because you had Connor Williams retire, and then, the trade one linebacker cut the other guy, and then you brought in Ernest Jones. Mm-hmm. And, it was pretty clear you weren't going to sit on your hands and wait till the offseason to fix things,
never,
right? I mean, it happened kind of quickly, and I mean, look, we were talking about this. You don't want to take anything away from Big Cat or, they all made plays and everything.
Right.
But that's kind of when the defense turned around. It was pretty amazing to watch that.
Yeah, Ernest did a great job. It was a great addition at that time. There's a lot of lessons in there. You're trying to learn a new staff. So last year everybody's coming together. Free agency's written. We're in the midst of everything. So learning a new scheme, learning a new staff, learning the teachers. So we're like on this constant quest to have this amazing marriage with, coaching, player development, acquisition, sports science. Like, how can we meld all these things together? And you're learning new people. So, you're trying to, yes, obviously we have to address the linebacker position. That, we're all kind of working together for the first time. So there's a little bit of a learning curve that goes in there with a first time head coach. And Ernest was a great addition. A first year head coach, sorry. But and you're together with a whole new staff, right? So, but Ernest was a great acquisition at that time because he's just this, strong, natural leader, and then obviously he's instinctive. We can go through all the physical stuff, right? Yeah. But just a really good player.
How do you attack the cap? Because we look at all these websites, and I know they don't have the exact numbers, but they all have the Seahawks being one of, I think, 5 or 7 teams that are over the cap.
Doomsday, yes,
by some margin.
Yeah.
And I know you just redid.
So that little comment from him, doomsday, right? John Schneider is well aware of what's being said out there about him, about his players, about the organization. He's not on Twitter. Some people speculate from time to time that maybe he has a burner account. He doesn't need to be. He doesn't do social media. He doesn't do any of that stuff. I know, I've talked to him about it personally, but his son Jack does it for him. And so anything that's said about him or the Seahawks, Jack relays that to Schneider. So he's well aware of what y'all are saying, which is why he made that little doomsday comment there. The sky is falling, right?
Leonard's contract. Right. I would imagine there's still more work to do. But in a season like this, where you're projected to be X amount of dollars, whatever that number is, how much more intense is it for you to have a list on the wall going, okay, this is a restructure, this will be called a bonus, this is an extension? Do you have?
Yeah, Joey Lane is working with us now. Matt Thomas is retired and living over in Spokane, and so we hired Joey Lane. So Joey Lane and Joey Schneider were working. All three of us really worked together on trying to map out what the landscape's going to look like, and yeah. So we have a big screen, category by position, whatever his contracts look like. This is what it's basically this huge. It's basically a huge puzzle, right?
Right.
And then whatever you're going to do at what position is going to affect another position on the team. So you're constantly, and we want to be a team that's going to be able to acquire people all throughout the year, until the trade deadline. We don't want to be, we want to be like just backed up against the wall.
Right.
And, we want to keep our powder dry, like Ted Thompson used to say, right?
Yeah.
So God rest his soul. But we want to be able to, have enough room and enough cash to be able to do, the things we want to do, to be able to address whatever's going on, what we perceive as a deficiency, as we get closer to the trade deadline. So you're constantly moving these, it sounds cold. I understand that, but you're constantly moving these pieces around, trying to figure out what you can do to a certain contract, or, is this guy a trade candidate, or is he is he going to be a cap casualty, or, and it's unfortunately, we've talked about this every year. You have to make tough decisions to keep moving forward.
Is there a priority in that, hey, this guy we have under contract, yeah, we need to do something with his deal, but he's under contract, like Geno or DK, versus, hey, Ernest Jones is a free agent. Is there a priority based on their status in which one you attack first?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, there is.
But he's not going to tell you what that is.
It's like, asking an offensive coordinator what the first 15 of the script is.
That's a classic Schneider answer.
So,
yeah, there's definitely a priority.
Okay.
And, you work that out through, the early stages of free agency. Obviously we want Ernest back. We talked to his guys. We've had great communication with them, and we're hoping we're able to accomplish that. Some guys at some point you can get too close to the end of the season where they want to see what free agency looks like. So now they can go out and see what their market is, and understandably so.
Hey, I always kind of take something away from every Super Bowl, and it seems like there's a trend and everybody wants to copy. Oh, well, they did it
Here
this
we
way.
go.
That's how they won. But anything like that? What stood out to you as far as how the season ended up with the Eagles winning?
It was a really boring football game, probably like our Denver, Super Bowl. And people are like, well, it was a boring game. And people in Philly are like, that was a great game.
Yeah. They were the only ones.
No, obviously, fast defense, playing sound defense, running the football, shooting explosives when you can, but protecting the ball, playing great defense, that wins championships. Yeah. That really was like, Philly did a great job. I mean, their defensive line depth is really impressive, and Coach Fangio does a great job with those guys too. So, it was just, you could just see Patrick. It was rough, like just right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Has your philosophy morphed at all now that you're the guy in charge of everything? You're working with the new coach. Last year was the first year. Has anything changed in the way you approach? This is how we're going to draft, or this is how we're going to prioritize this position. Has anything changed in that, or is it still?
Great question, Phil.
It's a good question. Can't wait to hear his answer. Sounds like he might be dodging it a little bit, but we're halfway through here, 12 and a half minutes into 23 and a half minutes. So let me just do this real quick, as I am wont to do. Hold on a second. Sorry. And tell you about Doer. Doer is built for doing. It's spelled D-U-E-R, but think about that catchphrase. They are built for doing really, really high quality, premium apparel. And these right here, these performance stretch jeans, I'm a big fan of. Shout out to one of my viewers, and now I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Was it Corey, maybe? Sent me a picture the other day, said, thanks for the discount. Bought some himself and loves them. These are my go-to. They also, you can see here, button-up shirts, polos, premium T-shirts, Henleys, joggers, hoodies, really high quality stuff, antibacterial, breathable, sustainable materials. And right now, if you order at shopdoer.com/forever, they'll give you 20% off your first order. That's shopdoer, DUER.com/forever. All right, let's get back into this. He was just asked here. Let's just go back just a few seconds and play that question again. Which, John usually admits, and he did earlier in this conversation that he referenced a learning opportunity, right? And he's talked openly about how his processes have changed over the years, and he likes to learn. The last time I spoke to him, he talked about he really gets excited about teachers teaching teachers, right? Coaches coaching their coaches. And he likes to learn. You hear him talk about that all the time. So I suspect it looked like maybe he was going to try to dodge this question a little bit. So it'll be interesting to hear his answer. This is a good question from Bob.
Last year was the first year. Has anything changed in the way you approach, this is how we're going to draft, or this is how we're going to prioritize this position? Has anything changed in that, or is it still?
Great question. Philosophically, no, but process-wise, yes. I would say, how do we streamline our decision making, and how can we?
I thought he was going to say, great question, but I'm not going to answer.
To be more efficient. How can we help out the players as much as we possibly can? Player development, like what kind of tools can we give them to help them improve? So, but philosophically, no, not really. We know exactly what our deficiencies are. It's, we can all see it, right? Mm-hmm. And we're like,
okay, he's talking about the offensive line, right? This is something I've been trying to espouse over the last couple of months. There is a mindset out there among a portion of fans. It's not the majority, but it's a significant enough amount of the fan base, and it's consistent. We hear it all the time that John Schneider has failed when it comes to building the offensive line. It's a fireable offense. We need a new GM. He's never going to get it done because he's failed to get it done in the past. And I see where he's going here. He very, very clearly just did that thing again that I touched on earlier, where he's referencing what he knows you all are talking about. And he knows this was coming. Now, it took 13 minutes into this interview for this to come up, but they had a lot to cover. It's the first one of the year. And so that you can see there's a little bit of glint in his eye and a little bit of tone there, like We can all see it. We know it's the offensive line, okay? And for those who think, take the cynical approach and you think, well, he's never going to fix it because he hasn't, and why would it change now? I've been saying this for a while. They've missed on some evaluations, not commitment to it. But also, it's different now. I believe it's different. I believe that if John Schneider and his staff don't fix this one glaring weakness on the roster, the one thing more so than any other thing that we can probably agree on that has kept them from getting that 11th win, 12th win, winning the division, getting to the playoffs, being able to do some damage in the playoffs is the offensive line. He knows it. His job is on the line if he doesn't fix it. You can make the argument up until this year that there were multiple big weaknesses that needed to be addressed. Last year it was offensive line, defensive line, and inside linebacker. And there were questions about the safety group too. This year, I think we feel good about just about every position group, especially assuming Ernest Jones gets re-signed. It's the offensive line. First, second, third, fourth, fifth on the priority list. He knows that. He hears it. His job will be on the line if he doesn't fix it.
We have a plan to address everything. Part of the acquisition part also is like, okay, what's the buy-in and with everybody so you can develop guys. You have to be a strong developmental team. Getting back to Philly, they've done a great job. Their offensive line coach is a really good coach, been there for a long time, and they've done a really nice job getting player acquisition and developing there. And that's what we need to improve on. We need to.
This is a point that Rob Staten's made in the past, and using the Eagles, this is months ago, even well before they won a championship with that group, that their model for the offensive line, some of those guys are high draft picks, some of them aren't, and then they pay their best guys, but they're always drafting and developing behind them. So when there are injuries or a Jason Kelsey retires, there isn't a fall off because they still have Lane Johnson and they have, they've got their 2 or 3 stalwarts, but they're developing other players. The Seahawks have that opportunity. You've got your tackles, assuming now Abe Lucas is healthy, and it sure looks like he is, getting his first healthy offseason in 2 years. You've got your tackles set. You've got a bunch of young guys that you can mix and match inside, but it's about identifying which ones you can develop and which ones fit the scheme and then making them the best they can be. Christian Haynes isn't done yet. I don't think Oluwatimi's done yet, although I do think finding a center in free agency is going to be a priority, and we'll talk about that more specifically in an episode next week, a standalone episode. But kind of doing both of those, right? I think he's telling us here that they know they need to go out and add in free agency to that group. But then also, you can't give up on Taulamea, Michael Jarrell, Jalen Sundell, Oluwatimi, Anthony Bradford. Now, maybe some of those guys, like he touched on earlier, can be traded. If you go out and you sign Drew Dalman in free agency as a veteran stud center, maybe Oluwatimi, who played well last year as a full-time starter, maybe there's a team that needs a center, and give him a day 3 draft pick for him. So there's a lot of moving parts here, but I just wanted to give credit to Rob because he's been talking about that model. And so now here we are full circle a couple of months later. The Eagles won a world championship largely because of the play of that group. And here's John Schneider acknowledging that that's how they.
We need to improve our ability to identify and develop, because it's like it's 50% both ways, and you have to be able to develop these guys. So yeah, I mean the philosophical part is really like running the ball. How do we run the ball? How do we play super fast here at the coolest stadium in the National Football League, where guys can just get ripping off the ball? That stuff is all stay the same.
Tell us about, you were on vacation. You weren't doing anything. There's nothing going on, right? Senior Bowl being one of them. Tell us about that. I know you spent some time down in still Mobile.
Yeah, we brought Mike with us. I'm not sure he's going to go again. I'm like, you sure you want to go, man? You're going to get bombarded by people down there. He's like, no, I really want to go and see the players and stuff. And
did he get
sure enough, we got down there and he got bombarded. He's signing helmets and stuff outside the stadium. People coming up to him asking him for jobs and everything. So, no, it was great having him down there, though. And it's always... I didn't go last year, because that was the week we ended up hiring Mike. So it was great to get back down there, and Jim Denagi does a great job of running that thing, and was great to get back with the scouts, like all of our guys, being around our guys, being able to talk. We've been together so long now, we're able to kind of speak the same language.
Okay.
So it's pretty cool to like be around our guys. And
so that's the first time in a long time that you guys all got together.
Yeah. Well, yeah, since, like training camp.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I take it back. We flew them in. They came in one weekend where we wanted them to be around the team, so they came in for I think it was the Arizona game at home, and we were able to kind of like go out and have a cool team bonding night with all the guys and their wives. But yeah, it's cool getting down there and seeing the players in person, and then seeing like so a lot of these guys I haven't seen in person. Some of the smaller school guys and guys that I wasn't necessarily paying attention to, early on that have really come like risen through the process. And then, to
like Jackson Slater, perhaps local kid here, Sacramento State, center, guard. Interviewed him last week. Check out that episode if you haven't.
Now to come back here and have the guys back in the building this week is so exciting because like I'm just like so impressed with all of our scouts, like all the knowledge, like all the stuff they have, especially with all the trade portal stuff and guys leaving and like guys making money and NIL now, and like okay, well they know how much money these guys have made, and you're able to talk to like if you coached at Oregon and you coached at Ohio State, you're able to talk to both those staffs about these guys. You know what I mean? So you kind of have a really clear.
That's a really interesting point. Something I hadn't thought about before. I've talked about the idea that these kids getting paid is a good thing in a lot of ways when it comes to the NFL evaluating them, because they're not making money for the first time after they sign and play in the NFL, and money can affect these young guys in different ways, some of them negatively. And so now it's part of the evaluation process. You get to see how they handle that. Did Carson Beck handle it in the best way possible last year? Spending his money on a Lamborghini and driving around thinking he'd made it, and then his performance on the field kind of lacked last year and took a step back. I don't know if that's a factor or not, but at least these teams now get to evaluate that. And then the idea that I'm meant to comment on that I hadn't thought of before is it gives them another piece of information about how these guys are wired and built to see how they adapt from one school to the next when they do transfer. Whereas, maybe in the scouting process, a guy like Gray Zabel or a guy like Jackson Slater, who had opportunities to leave a smaller school and take NLI money elsewhere, NIL money. I keep getting that backwards. Name, image, likeness. Gray Zabel is a perfect example. He said he had high six-figure offers to leave, but he stayed. He wanted to stay loyal to North Dakota State. And so that's probably part of their scouting profile of Gray Zabel is like, check, he's loyal and money's not the driving factor for him. But I don't think you're going to hold that against a player now if he transfers multiple times. First of all, you can't, or it'll eliminate half of the draft pool, right? But also like how now I have more data to gather because I have 3 coaching staffs. Take Tyler Shuck, for example, right? If they're interested in Tyler Shuck, and they should be, quarterback out of Louisville, finished up at Louisville, but he started at Oregon, and then he went to Texas Tech. So now you have 3 coaching staffs that you can consult with. What was he like there? What was he like there? Is it inconsistent? Was he, he was, right? That's a data point that they didn't have before. That's fascinating.
Clearer picture on these guys than we have in the past. Sometimes to our detriment. The decision-making process, but
right.
But it's just awesome to be around all these guys, and like, I'm just so proud of like all especially the young guys too. Like they're just so knowledgeable and on top of it. And we're just listening to Jack Green was just up there presenting, and he did an internship with us last year, and now he's full time and he did a great job. He just crushed his presentation, so it was really fun.
Isn't it amazing you may bring in a kid who's going to take a pay cut to play in the NFL?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not on top of it as much as these guys are. You don't really know. You read stuff on the internet, right. Or people, talk the agent world to kind of give you, a glimpse of what some of these guys are making. But it's really, hopefully they get things under control a little bit this spring when they finally, the NCAA's like whatever they're going to do in the spring. But it is amazing to think about because you can tell how much a guy how much he loves football, right? And all right, he's already got $3 million in his pocket, and the way they spend it too, which is interesting. So they were just talking about. Dang, I can't tell you. Shoot, sorry, I'll just let it rip. They're just talking about a guy that gave a ton of money back, in North Carolina for the devastation that happened there.
And, and Derek Hall did that, remember?
Yeah, Derek did. Yeah, the waters and yeah, exactly. But really cool, like how they spend their money, and is it flashy or how much or they turned out, they stayed at a school, like they could have made another $1 million here, but they stayed loyal to the coaches, and it tells you a lot about the guys.
That's really interesting, because I thought it would have an adverse effect on, because if you gave me $1 million when I was 20 years old, I was an idiot. But I mean,
right there with you, pal.
Yeah. What do you mean was? Come on, Bob. Yeah, but I mean,
you're 20 years old and somebody gives you,
Yeah, so you're able to tell,
$2 million.
And so instead of it being a negative, it's a positive as far as your evaluation goes.
Sure.
Because now, like you said, you know exactly how much they love football or how much they love money.
Or they turn it down, or they don't, they're sitting out, right? They're not, guys, lateral ankle sprain, not high ankle sprain, and he missed 4 weeks with it instead of a week. You know what I mean? It's it's just
Okay. Tuck that away. And if there's some prospects that you like for the Seahawks and they fit that category or they did something like that, just tuck that away. That's a little nugget he just gave you.
It tells you the whole story, really. It's kind of, at first I was thinking, I do, believe that guys should get paid, to a certain extent. So, but it's just the difference in the spending between the schools. It's just what blows my mind when I'm listening to, all our guys talk about their backgrounds.
Yeah, well, even non-traditional football schools like Duke, I was showing these guys, I saw something on the screen that the quarterback they brought over has an $8 million NIL deal at Duke for football. Unbelievable.
I know.
Isn't it a basketball school?
Yeah, that's what I've heard. They've had some success there. Hey, are there position groups you think are better addressed free agency versus draft and vice versa? Like, hey, if I'm looking for a wide receiver, it's better we go this route, because we're looking at O-line. Everybody looks at the O-line.
Sure.
That's a problem. Is that something you think is better addressed with a guy that's got experience under his belt, that's a free agent, versus, well, let's draft and develop this guy and hopefully they're going to be good in a year or two?
Great question. I would say it changes every year by position except for the offensive line.
Okay.
Because everybody's on this constant quest for offensive linemen and developing offensive linemen. And I mean, you brought up the Super Bowl. We just saw what happened in the Super Bowl, for crying out loud. Like they're playing for a world championship, and things didn't go well. So everybody you talk to, it's kind of like, and so I would say yes, to answer your question. Every position changes every year based on depth. But the offensive line there's always like this dearth of talent at the position. So, supply and demand, right? So, but there's, everybody's, when you talk to other teams, when you talk to other GMs about trades and stuff like that, or, our guys upstairs talking to other teams, everybody kind of like skips the offensive line because it's like just a given. You know what I mean? Like everybody's looking for them. You know what I mean? So, but it shifts, some years.
So that he just said the thing out loud that a lot of us didn't want to hear, in one sense, because a lot of you will suggest trading for a certain player. And I think what he's saying there is like they're off limits, like good offensive linemen, unless they're in the last year of their deal. And, you saw Jacksonville trade Cam, oh my goodness, now I'm blanking on his name, but Cam Robinson to the Vikings after Darisaw went down, right? But they could afford to do that because they had Walker Little. Like they had a third starting quality tackle that they could fall back on, and they actually kept Little and then just extended him, I believe. That's not typical. Most teams don't have extra offensive linemen of starting caliber laying around. And so I think that's what he's referring to there. It's like, you call a team to ask about what they have available. It's like we don't even talk about offensive line because no one's willing to part with them.
Be better runners. There's better corners. There's better receivers, and it just depends. And you're putting, your team. We can't do anything unless we know exactly what our team looks like. And then B, free agency. And then in free agency, it's also casualty guys too that were projected and may be released. And then obviously the drafts is the biggest portion.
My dad always
Because free agency is not like, you can't just throw money at something to fix it or to fix a perceived need. That's we've made mistakes there in the past, and we're not going to repeat. We're going to try not to repeat the mistakes we've made.
Yeah, and so this draft.
I hear something different in that part of his answer than I think some of you might hear. Let's go back and listen to that again. We'll go back about 30 seconds. Because while he acknowledges that they've made mistakes, and he's done this in the past, right? I keep using the example of the defensive line. There was the year they traded Frank Clark because they didn't want to pay him $20 million a year. They got the first-round draft pick in return for him, but then they got too cute in the draft. They traded down too many times. They missed out on guys like Rashawn Gary, and I think Montez Sweat was in that draft because they knew they needed an edge guy to replace Clark. And even if they had kept Clark, they needed to add to that group, and they end up trading down too often. They end up with LJ Collier. So that's a lesson learned. But I don't, as I'm listening to this answer, I can see, I know some of you out there probably think he's saying we don't want to repeat those mistakes. He's admitting that they made mistakes on the offensive line, right? And when he says, I don't want to repeat those mistakes, I don't think he's saying, so we're not going to sign any free agent offensive linemen again because we don't want that to happen again. I think some of you might take it that way. I don't take it that way. I think he's talking about evaluation and choosing the right guys. He touched on that early at the beginning of the interview. They've missed on some evaluations, and that absolutely needs to be
Our team looks like. And then B, free agency. And then in free agency, it's also casualty guys too that were projected that may be released. And then obviously the drafts is the biggest portion.
My dad always
because free agency is not like, you can't just throw money at something to fix it or to fix a perceived need. That's we've made mistakes there in the past, and we're not going to repeat. We're going to try not to repeat the mistakes we've made.
I think he's talking about how it's a layered approach. He's talked about development. He's talked about evaluating talent and then developing them, being on the same page as your coaching staff and knowing what they need and what traits they look for. And then you can't just fix it all by throwing money at it, right? It's a little bit of everything. And that's what I've been talking about for the last couple of months. Again, I think the tackles are set. The interior offensive line is all up in the air. I think it's going to be a multi-layered approach. I think they're going to sign somebody fairly significant in free agency. I think they're going to draft someone, let's say, before day 3 at least, and then also hope to develop some of those young guys they've drafted in the last couple of years, and through that collective effort, put together a capable offensive line.
Yeah, and so this draft looks like it has lots of, somebody called it a meat and potatoes draft, like offensive line, defensive line, more so. Do you see like the trend as far as offensive line goes, maybe starting to shift? My dad always says it's got to get worse before it gets better, so might as well hurry up and get worse. But are we at that point?
No,
where
because to you guys' point, like, the defensive linemen are making $8 million a year for their NILs. I'm being sarcastic. $8 million, right? But they're making whatever, $3 million, and offensive linemen are making 200 or something. You know what I mean? It's a big,
Wow.
There's not a lot of offensive linemen. They're doing sack dances.
Right. They're not
like
You're not doing pass sets in the backyard.
Yeah, on TV, on commercials and stuff, right? So, but that's the defensive line guys are always like every year you could just like we're doing edge rushers today, and we've been going since early this morning, and there's a lot of edge rushers, but it's kind of like what's your flavor ice cream? Like, what do you want? You want the short arm leverage? You want the guy with the power? You want like speed off the edge? It gets knocked around.
He just talked about Mike Green. Yeah.
Like, what do you want? And then that's how we're kind of, that's what we're sorting through right now. But there's every year it changes. There's like the depth level changes at every position.
Gotcha.
Episode 1 in the books. It went that fast. Can you believe it?
That was awesome.
All right, you guys. my take on it, all stuff that I expected to hear. Schneider's got a style, and although I do appreciate, again, in year 3 now of doing this show, he has become a lot more forthcoming and transparent in talking about his process. And you can tell he really enjoys talking about it, but he's only going to go so far. But I think you have to come away from this encouraged. And again, I know who I am and what I am. I know that I typically tend to try to find the optimistic viewpoint to cling to, right? That's just the way I'm wired. Some people are wired the exact opposite of that. But I think what you're hearing here is, now, we just went 24 minutes, and they didn't ask him about any specific players and what might happen with them. DK Metcalf didn't ask him about Geno Smith at all. Maybe that was agreed to ahead of time. Like, look, can we just not talk about that today? It's just something that it's just been ad nauseum. We've said our piece. Mike McDonald emphatically said the last couple of weeks, and then again when Clint Kubiak was hired, that Geno's our guy, and so maybe they just didn't feel like it needed to be addressed. Maybe there was a pre-arranged agreement that they wouldn't talk about that. But there's other shows. I think he does this weekly through the draft, so that'll come up certainly between now and the middle of March when Geno's bonus is due on March 16th. We'll certainly hear from him. So that wasn't talked about today. But as far as the offensive line, which I think is probably, if you ranked all the things that fans wanted to hear from him today, it was probably his idea on the offensive line. And I think he basically admitted it's not good enough. We know it's not good enough. Everyone can see it. We also just saw how the Eagles won a Super Bowl. They did it with defense, and they also did it running the football, and then he praised their offensive line, how they've been able to develop that. He talked about doing it through free agency and the draft and evaluation, talked about learning from past mistakes. I think you have to be encouraged that he's not sticking his head in the sand. He didn't come out here today and say, I told you guys that interior offensive linemen get overdrafted and overpaid, and we're not going to do that. He didn't say that. And again, I think Mike McDonald is going to be a very loud voice in the VMAC offices, insisting that they improve that part of the line. The fact they brought John Benton with them, who's had a ton of success in his 15, 16, 17 years coaching offensive lines in the league. Rick Dennison would be added to that group as well. I'm choosing to take away a lot of positives from this, but I want to hear what you think. What did you like? Tell me your favorite answer, your best thing you heard from him, and the thing that, if any, concerns you about maybe what he said or didn't say. Once again, unless there is any big breaking news between now and, let's say, next Tuesday or Wednesday, Seahawks Forever will be in a moving hiatus. And the next time you see me with the full setup will be a little different background. It'll look a little different. I'm kind of excited about it. I'm working on some things. So follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Seahawks Forever. Subscribe to the channel, of course. All the other ways you can support it down below in the comments. And check out the last couple of episodes. Really like the interview that I did with Jackson Slater, Sacramento State guard, center. Could fit perfectly into this vision that Schneider was talking about. Just a real blue-collar, mauler, outstanding pass protector, outside zone guy. And a local kid, played at Newport High School here in Bellevue. So check that out. Until then, forever and always, go Hawks. Shout out to BetUS for sponsoring the program. Thanks for watching, you guys.